Okay, today we're diving into a story that absolutely captivated the world. It's a story about the extreme limits of our planet, the absolute edge of adventure tourism, and, well, what happens when human ambition collides with the unforgiving depths of the ocean. Welcome to this explainer on the tragic journey of the Titan Submersible. 20 million rupees. Let that sink in for a second. That was the staggering per-person cost just to secure a seat inside the Titan. I mean, we're not talking about your standard luxury vacation here. This was extreme adventure tourism, designed to take a very select few down into the pitch black to see the most famous shipwreck in history, the Titanic, sitting completely hidden 3,810 meters below the surface. For just a few hours of exploration, passengers were more than willing to pay this incredible premium. But as we're going to see, that massive price tag definitely did not guarantee a safe return. Section 1, The Fatal Dive, June 18, 2023. This was the fateful day 5 people boarded the vessel for what was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime expedition. You had 58-year-old British billionaire Hamish Harding, 77-year-old former French Navy commander and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, British-Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his 19-year-old son Suleiman, and finally, Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, the very company that built and operated the Titan. Let's actually look at how a highly anticipated adventure completely spiraled into a terrifying global crisis in just a matter of hours. So at 9:30 a.m., the dive begins. Now, it generally takes about 2 hours to reach the ocean floor, and during this descent, the Titan was programmed to ping a signal to the surface every 15 minutes. But at 11:15 a.m., just an hour and 45 minutes in, boom, all contact is suddenly lost. No more signals. Despite this, the surface crew waited, totally expecting the Titan to just resurface at its scheduled time of 4:30 p.m. But when that deadline passed and the waters were completely empty, reality set in. At 7:10 p.m., the U.S. Coast Guard was officially notified. Section 2, Submersibles versus Submarines. This is a really crucial difference. Before we go any deeper into the search itself, we really need to clarify what kind of vessel we're dealing with. You've probably heard it called a submarine in the news, but the Titan was actually a submersible. And the difference here? It's all about power and independence. You see, submarines have their own massive power reserves. They can leave a port, navigate the open ocean, and come right back entirely on their own. Submersibles simply can't do that. They are completely dependent on a support ship up on the surface, in this case, a ship called the Polar Prince. Because submersibles go so incredibly deep, standard GPS just doesn't work. The Titan had literally no independent navigation system. Its only lifeline was a text message system communicating back and forth with the Polar Prince up above. If that connection broke, they were flying entirely blind. Section 3. Journey into the Abyss. Frightening Depths. To truly wrap our heads around the stakes of this mission, we've got to grasp just how terrifyingly hostile this environment really is. Consider the descent. Your standard recreational scuba diver maxes out around 130 feet. The deepest underwater rescue operation in human history, which happened way back in 1973, only went down to 1,600 feet. At 2,600 feet, you're swimming in the realm of giant, alien-like squids. Past 3,800 feet, and you enter the midnight zone. Absolutely no sunlight reaches here. Everything is pitch black, and the water temperature drops to roughly 4 degrees Celsius. And yet, the Titan was aiming for 12,500 feet, the actual ocean floor. At 12,500 feet down, the physics of the ocean become unfathomably violent. The pressure down at the Titanic wreck is almost 400 times greater than what you and I experience right now on the surface. Surviving at that depth demands absolutely flawless, battle-tested engineering. Why? Because even a microscopic flaw down there can be instantly lethal. Section 4. The 96-hour search, a race against time. When the Titan vanished, it triggered an absolutely unprecedented multinational scramble. The U.S. Coast Guard, Canadian aircraft, commercial ships, deep-sea ROVs, everyone was looking for a van-sized object in a 25,000 square kilometer area. That's 7 times the size of Goa. And hovering over all of this was a terrifying ticking clock. They only had 96 hours of oxygen. As this massive search expanded, the rest of the world started learning about the Titan's highly unconventional design. First off, the main body, the hull, was made of experimental carbon fiber instead of traditional steel or titanium. The vessel was literally steered by a heavily modified video game controller. And sure, navies do use gaming controllers for minor things like periscopes, but operating an entire deep-sea submersible with one? That raised a lot of eyebrows. Plus, the Titan didn't even have an EBIB, which is a standard emergency locator beacon used to broadcast a vessel's position. But honestly, here is the most horrifying detail of the whole shebang. Even if the Titan had managed to drop its weights and float safely back to the surface, the passengers couldn't get out. The hatch was bolted shut from the outside with 17 separate bolts. They would have literally suffocated on the surface of the ocean, just waiting to be unbolted. Section 5. Catastrophic Implosion, the Tragic End. On day 3, sonar actually picked up banging noises, giving everyone a brief, desperate glimmer of hope. But then, on June 22nd, an ROV scanning the seafloor found debris just 490 meters away from the bow of the Titanic. Those banging noises, completely unrelated. The debris field confirmed our absolute worst fears. It is incredibly important to understand how this ended. This wasn't an explosion where force moves outward. It was a catastrophic implosion. Because of that crushing 400 times normal pressure we talked about, the exact moment that experimental carbon fiber hull failed, the immense weight of the ocean squeezed inward, this collapse happens so incredibly fast, literally destroying the structure in less than a millisecond. It happens so quickly that the human brain doesn't even have the time to process pain. So for the 5 passengers inside, it was immediate, instantaneous, over in the literal blink of an eye. Section 6. The cost of hubris, ignored warnings. So, how on earth did this happen? Well, Robert Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic wreck back in 1985, he noted that deep-sea explorers have done thousands of dives in all sorts of vehicles and never lost one. Interestingly, the caps of the Titan, which were made of traditional titanium, were found completely intact on the seafloor. It was that experimental carbon fiber hull that shattered to pieces. This forces us to look backward at the decisions made long before the Titan ever touched the water. Because this tragedy didn't just come out of nowhere. It was preceded by massive, blaring warning signs that were tragically ignored. Way back in January 2018, OceanGate's own director of marine operations, David Lockridge, practically begged for serious safety assessments for the Titan. Instead of being listened to, he ended up in a legal battle and left the company. Then, in March of that same year, 36 industry leaders, we're talking top deep-sea explorers and oceanographers, wrote a unified letter to the CEO. They explicitly warned that the company's stubborn refusal to undergo standard independent quality certifications was basically a recipe for a terrible accident. But the CEO, Stockton Rush, had a very, let's say, specific philosophy about these industry standards. He genuinely felt that maritime safety acts needlessly prioritized safety over commercial innovation. In a really chilling interview given before the disaster, he explicitly said, at some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything. You see, Stockton Rush wasn't ignorant of the rules of deep-sea engineering. He actively and proudly chose to defy them. He used materials that absolute experts explicitly warned against for those depths. He believed his own logic could outsmart the established physics of the ocean, literally stating on camera, "I've broken some rules to make this." And because of that, Stockton Rush is now recorded in history on a very, very grim list: inventors who were killed by their own creations. Over a century ago, people blindly believed the Titanic was so grand, so incredibly modern, that it was completely unsinkable. But the ocean proved otherwise. In 2023, the CEO of OceanGate believed his experimental design was so innovative it could just bypass decades of established safety regulations. And the ocean, once again, proved otherwise. It leaves us with a haunting question to reflect on. From the unsinkable Titanic to the rule-breaking Titan, what is the ultimate price of believing we can outsmart nature? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep questioning and keep exploring, but do it safely.